This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast on Monday, November 27th. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving here on a Victory Monday for the New York Giants. It's rare, so we're going to go ahead and wear the jacket. It's nice to win one every once in a while. It's nice not to feel like your coach is totally incompetent. The Giants and Chargers have the same number of wins this season. The Chargers quarterback is Justin Herbert. The Giants quarterback is an undrafted free agent who lives with his parents. So go Giants. But we're here to talk about the New York Yankees. The hot stove heated up a little bit at the end of last week. And this morning, Sonny Gray goes to the St. Louis Cardinals. The Yankees are thinking about Jordan Montgomery. The Mariners make a big trade that might clear the path for a Gleyber Torres deal. We're just trying to assess where the Yankees sit ahead of the winter meetings. And it's pretty much the same story it's been for weeks. If they hit big, good job. If they don't, the plan Bs are a struggle. Plus, a little bit of fake drama in the strange Yankees Twitter story of the week at the back end of the podcast. But thanks for joining us live on the stream. Thanks for joining us on the audio. If you did not hop on the stream, there's still time. You can come get us right now. We're on the Yanks Go Yard YouTube channel. We're streaming here every Monday and Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern time. Guest or no guest, we will be here. The audio feed goes up right after the live video goes live. I love saying live. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us, as always, Thomas Carinante. Especially, thanks for joining us in the crowd as well. But Thomas, before we get going, you've got a special offer for viewers, listeners, and just people stumbling upon us.
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? Yanks Go Yard is partnering with Sleeper Daily Fantasy to give new users a first deposit match up to $100. You can head on over to sleeper.com or download the Sleeper Daily Fantasy app. Make sure to use our code. It's FANSIDED2, the number 2, when signing up to receive your deposit match. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Scan the QR code on the screen to see if you qualify. We got what did we get today? We got some news kicking off. Winter meetings are next week, but Sonny Gray starts things off with a 3-year, $75 million deal with the St. Louis Cardinals. Probably makes sense to just talk about this for a minute and then move on. But, what are the implications here? I mean, it was never happening with the Yankees. Probably a good deal for the Cardinals, but I think it helps the Yankees a little bit with clearing a path for bigger pitching targets, even if it's not Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who we were scared for a second because Derek Gold of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch had said that the signings of Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson were signaling that the Cardinals were perhaps preparing for larger offers to Japanese players.
Yeah.
The Cardinals have 5 starters right now. I know it's not the most inspiring rotation, but you just invested all that money. Don't know if a $200+ million investment in a starter is next in the cards for them. But I mean, I don't know. Not going to rule it out. I think it just helps that you get a big name off the market. It goes to a team that's desperate for pitching, connect the dots, and there you have it.
The rumor is that the Cardinals are not done, but they're looking at bullpen arms and arms on the trade market. So none of that should concern the Yankees very much. It sounds like Tyler Glasnow is in play there. It sounds like Dylan Cease maybe could be. Of course, we know the Yankees and Cardinals match up really well on outfield trades, utility player trades. Does this take them out of, say, a Clark Schmidt for Brendan Donovan sweepstakes? I don't think it does, but I definitely would say they were looking scary for Yamamoto before the Sonny Gray deal goes down. It was in our rundown. We were going to talk about it. There was Derek Gold's report. There was, Lars Nootbaar played with Yamamoto on Team Japan. He and Nolan Arenado flew to Japan after the regular season and before free agency opened. Nootbaar was golfing with Yamamoto. All signs pointed to there being sort of, hey, maybe there's going to be a tug of war between most money versus best relationship. We don't know. We don't know what he favors. We know next to nothing about Yamamoto, except for that he's probably not going to sign until after the winter meetings, pending craziness. His current plan is to meet with some people virtually this week, then after the winter meetings, set up the face-to-faces with the finalists. All of that meaning, I would say at this point, it seems pretty safe to be able to count the Cardinals out of that mix. Now, this isn't like the Padres and the Yankees in the Juan Soto chase, where it's like, hey, the Mariners and Cubs and Yankees might all have the high-end arms that the Padres covet, but only the Yankees want to give them up. Anyway, you do that information what you will, where Jeff Passan pretty much like eliminates the Yankees competition. This isn't like that. The Mets are going to be at the forefront of the Yamamoto chase. The Red Sox are going to be at the forefront of the Yamamoto chase, if not the very front. The Yankees have, every team is lining up seemingly to pay Yamamoto between $200 and $250 million for his services. But after giving Sonny Gray a very smart, top-of-market 3-year deal, $25 million a year, nothing confusing, no weird deferrals, no fourth year to lower the AAV, just age 34, 35, 36 for an ace who feels like a good fit in St. Louis. It's a good signing. He wasn't an option for the Yankees, but Yamamoto certainly was, still is, and this would presumably take the Cardinals out of that chase. I would be, I'll just say I would be stunned if they do end up making a move for Yamamoto after all of this. They have a full 5-man rotation. Any acquisition of a pitcher will have to come with a Steven Matz trade or something like that, which they could do, but he's not going to be involved. You're not going to dump him for pennies and then sign Yamamoto. You're probably going to trade him and attach prospects and get Glasnow. So I don't know. The Yankees' path towards getting Yamamoto got a little bit clearer today, but only in the fact that one of the potential, that's an interesting spot, fits fell off the board. Not in that the Mets are out, not in that the Red Sox and Dodgers are out, not in that he said anything to indicate he's interested in the Yankees. We just lost one team along the way. You no longer have to connect those dots.
Yeah, you lose a dark horse. I always feel that's a good development. You don't want these teams lurking in the shadows and then striking when you least expect it, especially a team like the Cardinals, pretty historic franchise. Like, they have a good roster. I don't know what happened to them last year. I don't think who knows? I don't. It's just a curse year. But a smart player like Yamamoto might be able to overlook that. I don't know. I wish there was why isn't there a candidate like Sonny Gray? There aren't more candidates like that, like a nice 3-4 year deal right in the 90 million, right below the 100 million threshold mark. Why isn't there more of that?
More 33-year-olds should be hitting free agency. I'm sick of all these 26-year-olds asking me for my entire payroll.
Life, or just my life. Yeah, here is it. Be with me for the next 12 years. We're signing, Trey Turner's and or Bogarts to 11-year contracts. It's good for them, but what fan wants to be wed to a player or group of players for that long? Especially when the back half of the deal is going to be ugly or full of aggression or whatever it is. So
guaranteed bad. That's how that works. You're signing someone who is guaranteed to be bad in the future, but you're doing it for a good reason, but they're still going to be bad.
Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, I don't know who else would fall under the bucket of being in the shorter term outlook. I like the trade market if the Yankees can make a move. You can't sign everybody. They already have 2 players at the top of the rotation that take up $500 million when you combine Rodon and Cole, pretty much. So you add Yamamoto into the mix, you're not signing anybody else. You're probably going to have to look at Dylan Cease if you're into that, Corbin Burns if the Brewers are going to decide to move off of him. We wouldn't get Glasnow. I don't want Glasnow anyway. That's a Yankees injury nightmare waiting to happen. The trade market isn't the most robust right now. So that's why the Yankees have to move fast. And if they are truly in on Yamamoto, they gotta close this deal as quickly as possible, or else you let the Mets hang around, you let the Red Sox hang around, you let the Dodgers hang around. Not going to be good. And we know that looking at all the payroll situations for the other teams, the Mets have an ugly situation, but Steve Cohen will figure it out. And if he doesn't figure it out, he's not afraid to spend the money. Dodgers have a ton of flexibility. You look at their roster too, they could get rid of 15 people tomorrow. You wouldn't even know who they were.
Yeah.
And they'd be able to just revamp everything and just get a whole new team together. No contracts tied to them beyond 2026. And those 2 contracts are Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. So that's not even a talking point. Red Sox, fairly flexible as well. You got a new voice in the building in Craig Breslow. And there is a desire there for them to be aggressive and, do better by their fan base after whatever the hell they've done the last 4 or 5 years. So if Yamamoto is the guy for the Yankees, it's got to be a done deal. Because, man, I looked at those athletic plan Bs earlier, right before the podcast, and holy shit, that is a bleak time if we miss out on the top, or at least if the Yankees miss out on the targets that they want. Just the next crop of guys is sad. It's sad and scary, and it will be a very unenjoyable 2024.
Well, let's talk about all that, because ahead of the winter meetings, I thought we would get a little bit more clarity on the Yankees' plans. But honestly, the assessment of where the team stands right now, it's still heavily weighted on these big names. Like, that's why it's so hard to diagnose all this stuff, because if Juan Soto is available, the Yankees must trade for him. If Juan Soto is not available, then there's nothing the Yankees could do. So will that go down at the winter meetings? Probably sooner rather than later, but it's not going to go down before the winter meetings. So the Yankees are going to enter that GM summit with that big old fish dangling right in front of them. Like, hey, if Juan Soto is available, congratulations, you need to sell whatever it takes to get Juan Soto. If Juan Soto is not available, you're going to be looking at Max Kepler for corner outfield. You're going to be looking at Jorge Polanco for middle infield or whatnot. Like, boosting your lineup is going to be much tougher to do if you do not have Juan Soto in front of you. Soto and Yamamoto remain just the two easiest, clearest, best fits for the New York Yankees. And so they're going to be focused on Yamamoto entering the winter meetings, but he's not signing till after the winter meetings. They're going to be focused on Juan Soto entering the winter meetings, but he might not be available at all. The Padres are reportedly still going back and forth. It kind of feels like a coin flip there. So other than that, they're not signing. Sonny Gray was not part of their plans. Glasnow Cease not part of their plans. Eduardo Rodriguez not part of their plans. Apparently, you're supposed to be eyeing the Braves in the Eduardo Rodriguez chase. So I've heard. Kenta Maeda goes.
Why not Cease?
Dylan Cease?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know. Not why not. I just haven't heard them connected to him.
Oh, yeah.
It's, St. Louis and the Braves and the Dodgers. They can get in. They can get involved, but I don't think that they are so far. So what can happen ahead of the winter meetings? How will they be positioned at the winter meetings? They're going to trade Kyle Higashioka still because they tendered him a contract. He's not making it to opening day. And I think that, the Bowers trade and the roster machinations last week were probably, other than a surprise Higashioka trade, the last thing we're going to see before they actually touch down in Nashville December 4th to try to get some business attended to. I think they're going to be talking to the Cardinals as soon as they get there. I think they're going to be telling everybody their intentions on Yamamoto, and they're going to be going on MLB Network and saying, balls in his court. We love the pitcher. We've made our feelings pretty clear on that one. They won't eliminate themselves, I don't think. I doubt you get the Brian Cashman Grinch moment where a man in a costume is standing behind him and he's like, Shohei Ohtani has told us he hates us. Like, I don't think we get that with Yamamoto, but action before the winter meetings, like, from what we've heard, Ohtani might sign ahead of the winter meetings, but I don't think that clears up a Yankees logjam per se. It just changes our lives for the worse if he goes to Boston or Toronto, and better if he goes to the Dodgers. We're not involved there. Beyond that, I don't think anything else big is getting done. I think Ohtani goes this weekend. I think Eduardo Rodriguez goes today or tomorrow. And I think that second tier of starters, Sevy's going to find a home. Frankie Montas is going to find a home. But beyond that, I'm not expecting any blockbuster Yankees moves over the next week. I just think their offseason is dominated by these looming suns above them that have to get themselves sorted out.
Yeah, I really hope Ohtani doesn't sign before the winter meetings, because that's, to me, that's a disadvantage to the Yankees. If one of these big market teams that's in on multiple guys is able to secure Ohtani before the winter meetings, that's going to allow them to shift their focus to other important moves.
Yeah.
Whereas instead of the winter meetings having Ohtani be the focus and the dominant conversation, where all the suitors who are truly interested in him get together, and that's where you got to focus your attention. If you're in on Shohei Ohtani, based on everything we're hearing about, I guess, how he wants the interviews to go, how he doesn't want any of the meetings to leak, and all that, like, you need to be putting in all of the necessary work to get him to sign on the dotted line, because it's obviously not about money. He's getting his money. The price isn't going to matter. Obviously, I think, when you're reaching a certain threshold, and I guess maybe he likes, in theory, two destinations. Yeah, there might be a bidding war at that point. But on the surface, he's going to narrow down who he wants. and that's going to be the end of it. So I really don't know why he would sign before the winter meetings. I guess just to not be part of all the chaos, but it'd be really beneficial if that didn't happen. So the Yankees can actually be able to focus their attention without all these other interrupters. But yeah, when talking about these bigger names that, you just mentioned, Yamamoto, Soto, even Bellinger, the Athletic mentioned Ohtani as like, a possibility.
There's no chance. Like there's no
I
chance.
would bet any amount of money against that happening.
I would bet Ohtani's entire contract, whatever it is. Yeah. And then as soon as I get that money, I'm going to do a 3-way parlay, unfortunately. Literally, $500 million of my money.
I'm going to sleep daily.
If the New York Yankees are in the Shohei Ohtani chase and come out the victor, then I will owe the world $500 million. And that's fine.
I mean, I will pay any amount of money for these Plan Bs to not be part of the Yankees.
Yeah, hit me with the Plan Bs because I suspect we're doing like Dylan Carlson shit again. Which
not even that. It's worse than that, in my opinion.
Cool.
You got Jung-Ho Lee, who I think we like, but cannot be the guy.
I like him, but it's just the vibes to me are so similar to Dice K and Keigawa. Missed out on Masataka Yoshida last year because the Red Sox outbid everybody. And look, they got a 300 hitter with solid power who's a lefty. Oops. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll go with defense first, singles hitter Jung-Ho Lee for $55 million out of Korea, who I think is a good player, but I thought Keigawa was a good pitcher in 2006, and I was fucking wrong. So I don't know. There's a chance. I do think a Steven Kwan type of singles hitter with 5 to 10 homer power would be beloved by a certain sect of the fan base. Yes. And Yoshida is beloved in Boston. And so there's definitely a chance Lee shows up and hits 320 in May with 2 homers and a certain segment of fans go wild. But I if you're going to commit, just make sure you're committing to the right pieces.
Yeah, look, I'm not against that signing.
I'm not against that either.
Yeah, it's just depressing if that's okay, we got to do this. And then that's the end of it, especially because, again, you're missing out on the 2 or 3 guys ahead of him, and then you're essentially settling. Then you have Candelario, nice fit at third base, they claim. I guess if that's if you need another, he's a switch hitter, right, Candelario?
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so that's if you lose out on the lefty bat. You go Lee and Candelario, and then I guess maybe you keep DJ LeMahieu off his feet a little bit more, or Anthony Rizzo off his feet a little bit more, and be a little bit more flexible in the infield. And then there's Teoscar Hernandez or Jorge Soler as outfield options. Again, that is fine. I have nothing against players. Those are righties, number one. And number two, you're looking at the Yankees situation. We have looked at the Yankee situation extensively for quite a while. We don't need to keep telling you guys what the reality is. But the reality is this. They are not very good. Getting middling free agents is not going to help. I understand that there is a certain school of thought that says, hey, if you add a couple of different players, you don't have to add superstars to every position. I think we're big believers in that. You add a couple of players with different profiles. You get a really good defender. You get a contact hitter, aggressive hitter, and that changes the complexion a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly agree with that, but that can't be at the expense of losing out on your desired targets. I think that should be a supplementary plan to the larger picture. But that this being your fallback and being all right, this is what 2024 is going to be. That's terribly depressing. And then on the pitching front, obviously they talked about potentially missing out on Yamamoto. You got Frankie Montas and Erod as the people who are mentioned here, which is insane to me.
Well, we know who they're actually chasing out of those two. No.
And then you have Montgomery, which I guess let's talk about that because I couldn't disagree with this more. There's rumor going around that there is this link between I guess it's a report because there's been multiple established writers that have been talking about it, that the Yankees are interested in a reunion. Kind of would be crazy because like we talked about previously, they couldn't maximize him. They had the chance to extend him and not pay top dollar for the latter part of his career and his first ability to get a payday. And you let somebody else reap all the benefits and go on a World Series run, and now you're going to pay all that money for him. I'm not opposed to it. I know I just said I'm opposed to it, so I'm an idiot. But I'm not. At the end of the day, if they signed him, I'm not going to start yelling about it. But let's explore other options and pay top dollar for maybe higher profile names or kind of these depreciated assets as Yankees that maximized elsewhere, and now we're paying the price for somebody else getting all the quality out of it.
Well, this link that you're talking about between the Yankees and Jordan Montgomery, is that just somebody checking out the baseball reference page? It's like, oh my God, guys, come over here. He used to play for the Yankees.
Believe this.
Isn't that crazy? He used to play for the Yankees. That's nuts. Yeah, I think it's exactly what you said. It's like good fit. Everybody got their screens
also wasn't
out.
A good fit.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a good fit when he left. He wasn't a good fit when he left. I mean, last week he was, when everybody was screaming in October about the shutouts on the road, this is the roller coaster of baseball fandom, right? Everybody's screaming when he shuts out Tampa on the road. Everyone's suspiciously quiet when the Orioles kind of kick his ass in the playoffs. Then he destroys the Astros, and it's, oh my God, this guy couldn't even crack the Yankees rotation. Then he's maybe the Rangers' worst starting pitcher in the World Series. Like it's up and down. Jordan Montgomery is probably a 3-starter with, visions of a 2-starter and occasional visions of a 4-starter. That's baseball. Somebody's going to pay him a lot of money this year. And I think the chat is right. I think he gets around Sonny Gray's AAV, like $25 million, but he's getting 5 years, Jordan Montgomery.
At least 5 years.
I think he's getting 5 years and somewhere between 120 and 125 million. And
I guess I would do that.
I mean, I guess I would do anything.
I guess I would do that, guys.
What's the link? What's the connective tissue here after the team just went on record and said he won't be in our playoff rotation in 2021? Oh, whoops. Now he's been in somebody else's playoff and World Series rotation and doing it on the road, and now we're interested again? Like, unless Montgomery reached out and was like, hey, remember when you blindsided me with a trade right when my wife was supposed to start a medical residency? Well, she's still in New York at that medical residency. So if you could sign me, that would be great, because my wife still lives here. Like, if that happens, then sure. Then there's stuff that's bigger than baseball. But I would just be very surprised if Montgomery got smacked around, disrespected, found himself elsewhere, learned how to pitch under Mike Maddox, and then was like, where I want to go back to is the one team where it hasn't worked.
Yeah, you go back to the playoff comments, you go back to the blindsided trade, and then it's like, oh, now we're paying $150 million for the guy that we didn't think was going to be a playoff starter and the guy that we disrespected on his way out. So I guess for quality player purposes, I'm not against it, but for vibe purposes, I'm kind of against it because it goes against everything the Yankees were saying or doing. Again, it seems like a wasted use of funds because they already had it here. Honestly, if they approached Jordan Montgomery about an extension in 2022, they could have probably got him for $75 million, $80 million. I'm not. Does that sound crazy? I don't think that's great. And I'm not really a proponent of that. I'm not sitting here being like, hey, make sure we sign everybody below market price. But when you have the chance to do that, because we didn't know what Jordan Montgomery was. And the only reason we didn't know what Jordan Montgomery was because the Yankees weren't able to unlock the best of his abilities. So when you're sitting there looking at a guy pitching, 3.8 ERA, hovering around 4, like guts out certain performances, it doesn't really give you that much length. You're like, okay, back end starter, number 3 tops, it feels like here. That's $75-80 million if we were to judge the market appropriately. So you had it there. You could have had him for that money, and now you're going to pay more than double that after you kind of made yourself look like a fool. I don't agree with it, but if it happens, it happens. Welcome back, Monty. I don't know if he'd be open to it. It seems like he had a lot to say. I don't think he was necessarily negative about it, but he was asked a lot of questions about the Yankees, a lot of questions about the new settings he was in both St. Louis and Texas. And you look at St. Louis, like you couldn't have gotten, as we mentioned earlier, you couldn't have gotten a more toxic, disappointing, crazy situation than St. Louis in the first half of 2023. He didn't have anything. He didn't have any bad things to say as he walked out of that door when they traded him to Texas. He had good things to say. He talked about how, they helped him, with his arsenal. They helped him with his game planning. They helped him with his development and his growth at this stage in his career. So I don't know. There's a lot here that goes against the Yankees making this move, especially when you have somebody like Yamamoto, 25 years old. That's probably where you should be investing most of the money. You're going to get the most prime years out of that. So yeah. And then I think who else was on this list? Who else did they have? Was there one more?
You know what's funny with the Montgomery thing, though? It's sort of become this common, accepted thing. Like, oh, man, he earned himself a huge raise by finding himself in St. Louis and Texas. He earned himself a raise, but he didn't earn himself a huge raise. The going rate for what he was when he left the Yankees, like you mentioned, was, 150 to 200 innings starting pitcher, innings eater, solid 3.4, 3.8, 3.9 ERA. Like that would have cost 75 to 80 million dollars, and now it's going to be 120 to 125 million dollars. It's more money, but it's not like he went from someone you can get for 4 years 30 to 120 million dollar arm. He was already someone who the reason he was traded, there are many reasons he was traded, but at the time the discourse was already starting like, by the way, Scott Boras is this guy's agent. Like, he's not going to undersell him. He's going to sell him he's going to preach Montgomery's value to interested teams. He's probably going to reach free agency. And when he gets there, Scott Boras is going to say, to a team like the Cardinals, ironically enough, don't you need 165 to 170 above average innings? Like, who doesn't need that? Look at your rotation from last year. Look what you got. Adam Wainwright's throwing 85 innings with a 5.84 ERA. Like, don't you want Jordan Montgomery? Don't you want to just be able to bank on something? He's already had Tommy John. This is your guy. I feel like he was probably an $80 million extension candidate. And now that he's reached free agency with slightly more of a resume under his belt, a year and a half, it's going to make a little more than that. But he was always going to be oversold slightly. Now it just feels like a better contract because we've seen him in October.
Yeah. Starting pitching. Yeah, you're right. Like the rates are the rates. They don't go down too much because it's probably the most steady asset you can have if you get somebody who's as experienced. And, Jordan Montgomery's fairly consistent. Even when he was not atop his game in New York, he was still a guy I think most teams would take and pay the money for. Like, you get the stability, you get somebody who is going to provide X or Y, and then you go to sleep at night and you're comfortable with that. Another option on this list was Shota Imanaga. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know much about him. I'm not opposed to any of these signings. But I guess third most sought after Japanese player in the mix here, with another one of these other position player backups that was uninspiring. That just wouldn't sit well with everybody. And then it would be, you'd have the pressure game on all these newcomers, which I hate. I hate it because it's already hard enough to play in New York. It's already hard enough to play professional sports. And then you come in, you don't mean to do anything as a free agent. You're just coming in. The Yankees signed you. You just want to play some baseball. You have these elevated expectations, which is why we were very much against the Brian Reynolds trade last year, because it was going to cost a lot. It's going to place all this unnecessary stress on and pressure on this guy who got traded here. He didn't even make the conscious decision to sign here. And then you run into a situation where it's like, if you're not performing right off the bat, you want to talk about the vibes being at an all-time low. We've seen it happen many a time over the last few years here with guys who have not met expectations, whether it was trade deadline acquisitions, offseason trade signings, whatever it may have been. So I don't want, like the plan B or C group to come in and then have plan A expectations on them because the impatience is boiling over from the last few seasons, which is why you need the marquee signing to carry part of that burden, because I think someone like a Yamamoto or a Soto know what that's like. They know what it is to be the superstar, the centerpiece, the center of attention. Yamamoto having all that international experience. So you need that to accompany maybe some of these other supplementary moves. You can't just have a piecemeal plan B, C offseason here. And I think that's something that is really important for the Yankees in 2024.
100%. And that's why the big dogs are going to hang over everything they do until those situations are resolved. Like, they're not in the Ohtani mix. They're very much in the Yamamoto mix. Mistranslation has hit the Yamamoto conversation as if this couldn't be a more complicated free agency. We now have like agent to Japanese media to English media, which results in nonsense like last week when a bomb went off that said Yamamoto demanded to play with another Japanese star. And everybody is making their very funny jokes like, oh, Kyle Higashioka, come on down. Yeah, definitely not a racist joke for sure. Good joke, everybody. Keep making those. But the Yankees don't have a Japanese player on the roster. They're panicking. People are like, sign somebody, sign Imanaga, like whatever you have to do. And then it turned out he was just saying, his agent Joel Wolf was saying that he would play with another Japanese player, which is important, which is also important information because Japanese stars often don't want to team up. It's a culture thing. Sometimes they don't want to share the locker room. We actually don't know if Ohtani's like that. Like the Red Sox might have been out months ago. We have no idea. But Yamamoto apparently will play with a fellow Japanese star. So don't count the Mets out. Don't count the Red Sox out. That's important information. But we briefly were told he absolutely demanded extra Japanese superstars in the locker room. And that just was not true. So we're going to be contending with stuff like that until that's resolved. Andy Martino keeps saying the same thing. And don't forget, Andy Martino's plugged in, right? If he knows one thing, it's the Yankees and Mets. He says Yamamoto intrigued by the idea of playing for the Yankees. The Mets will go hard. The Red Sox will also go hard. That's all we know. And Yoshida could be a factor, and Senga could be a factor. And the Yankees are probably going to be a finalist. Probably. Don't know. Knocking on wood. They'll likely get one of those coveted meetings after the winter meetings are over. But they can't bank on that. They can't bank on Juan Soto being available. They have a difficult challenge underfoot this year of trying to build a competitive World Series roster, like you said, from a place where the team isn't very good. There are not a lot of sure things on the roster right now. There's no savior. You're not drafting a quarterback, right? You got to bring in a lot of talent in every area. Good tweets this week, too, reminding everyone the rotation's also not good. Because I think people are still saying, like, rotation not a problem, bro. Got to fix that lineup. No kidding, we got to fix that lineup. It was awful. But the rotation also behind Garrett Cole, they had, like, the 20th best ERA in baseball.
Yeah.
Rotation also bad. Everything that could have gone wrong with the rotation did. Carlos Rodon was one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Shouldn't have been, but he was. His Stuff Plus says he'll revert back to the norm next year. Great. Want to take that bet? Want to shake hands and take that bet? Tell me right now Carlos Rodon's going to be in locked in number 2 next year? I don't think you do you? I don't think you feel comfortable there. Nestor Cortez made 12 starts last year. Couldn't get out of the 5th inning in most of them. Had the same shoulder injury twice. I thought he was an offseason surgery candidate. My fears are not quelled there.
No.
Anybody feel confident Michael King is on this roster opening day? Not if Juan Soto is available. Anybody feel confident Clark Schmidt? What is Clark Schmidt? We're all giving Clark Schmidt participation points for a 4.58 ERA and like a good June and July in a season where we all agree we had no fun. Like I'm glad Clark Schmidt was pretty okay last year.
Yeah.
But the Clark Schmidt stuff feels a lot like every fan base, no matter how bad the roster is, just gets attached to these players who are like fine. Like Red Sox fans being like, just put Houck in the rotation, Whitlock in the rotation, sign an ace, and we're good to go. It's like, why are you putting all these guys who are in your shitty rotation back in your rotation? That's kind of what it feels like when Yankee fans are like, put Clark in there, obviously. It's like, I think you could maybe stand to improve on Clark, too.
Yeah.
He's a solid number 5. He's a swingman. He just threw his career high in innings last year. And yeah, Fernando in the comments saying Nestor Cortez is cheap. I don't want to get rid of any of these people. I'm just saying you can't look at the rotation and be like, no problems there. That's good to go.
Yeah.
It's not good to go. It's pending bounce backs and injury history changes and
linear development, which is what we struggle with.
Yeah, and hopes for linear development and hopes that Michael King in September is exactly what Michael King looks like in April. The best case version of what the Yankees cobbled together last year would be pretty good. But last year, they were 20th in ERA. They weren't good. So you could sell me on upgrading anybody. You can't ignore the rotation entirely. Oh, Matt Blake will figure it out. The prospects will come in. The prospects will come in and contribute right away. Okay.
I think at the very least, the problem with the Yankees rotation is that they have very few known commodities.
Yes.
And I even think that you could argue Rodon is an unknown commodity because of his history with injuries. He's had 2.5 great seasons. Nothing, that's not going to get taken away from him, but he's not, he's not, I guess he's not even like a Kyle Gibson or as someone who's more comparable, like an Aaron Nola. Like he was paid to be what Aaron Nola is, and he's not. Career-wise, he just isn't. He does not have the longevity. He doesn't have the consistency with finishing in Cy Young races. There's a lot more potential or dreamy scenarios there than there is actual tangible production. Then you have Michael King, who was never able to start before this year and then happened to pop into the rotation because the Yankees needed starters and he performed well. And I think that that's good. But I mean, now you're looking at a full workload of Michael King for the next year. Well, how can you possibly project what you're going to get out of that? And yeah, I think you're totally right on Clark Schmidt. I was really happy with what Clark Schmidt did. The Yankees invested a lot of time and a lot of resources into developing him. Do we wish it was better? Sure. I think we had much higher hopes for him when he was initially coming up he debuted in 2020. So it's been a while now. That was 4 seasons ago he debuted, and there was a lot of high hopes for what he could bring to the rotation. And yeah, you're looking at him and it's like, great, number 5, number 6, someone who can do a little bit of both for you.
Tanner Houck, the same thing. Oh, we'll be good with Houck in the 4 spot. You're building an okay to bad team. You won't be okay with okay pitchers anywhere. Michael King, the starter, is to me the Leslie Mann drunk driving scene in 4-Year-Old Virgin. That fucker came out of nowhere. Like, why is Michael King a starter now? It's great, but it wasn't in my plans until August. Leprechaun in the comments bringing out that the Yankees pitchers in the farm system have high quality and highly ranked stuff. It's true. Baseball America, per their metrics, said that the Yankees have objectively the 3rd best pitching farm in baseball. Second best in terms of whiff percentage in the zone and second best in terms of chase rate. The stuff is so good that it gets people to chase and it gets people to swing over pitches that are theoretically hittable down the middle. Great to have a great farm. Having a fantastic farm full of pitchers like Will Warren and and Chase Hampton and Drew Thorpe. These are people that I like a lot. And I like the returning Luis Heel, the comment section's talking about. I like all of these names. But if you are like, hey, you know what the rotation should be? Chase Hampton, Drew Thorpe, 4-5. I'd be like, okay, best of luck. Prospects. Just nobody is going to steal a rotation spot on a World Series contender with a strong spring. That's not how it works.
No, and the best case scenario is you have one of those guys maybe compete for a 5 spot, or one of those guys compete for a spot on the team where they are utilized as a spot starter, long relief option, but they cannot be factored into the rotation. And I think it's even with commodities that have proof, some proof behind them, like Schmidt and King. Like I can't project what they're going to do next year. Even Nestor's had one full good year when you combine everything. Like 1.25 full year. I love Nestor Cortez.
Yes.
I love him, but like there is, and you factor in the shoulder injuries, a lot of uncertainty there. Historically has not given length. Historically has struggled with his stuff and his command and his location. Got it all together for a little while. Now injuries have impacted it. I think you know what happens when guys who don't have a long track record of success get injured. More times than not, they revert back to the struggles that plagued them in the first place. So I'm desperately hoping that doesn't happen with Nestor Cortez, but you have to be a realist and understand that could very well occur. And then the Yankees are down another starter. Or, you always have the looming the looming worry that because there was no surgery here, does that have further complications at risk as the year goes on? I don't know. I don't know exactly what the injury was. I don't know what the medical assessment was. I don't know if he forewent surgery and decided to rehab it or whatever, but that's another concern. So yeah, to look at the Yankees rotation, and it's nice to be optimistic. If you want to be optimistic and think that some of these guys are going to take the leap, and you think we have 4 guys who can be in the rotation all year and give 130, 140 plus innings, then okay, cool. But you can't sit here and tell us that we can't use 1 or 2 additions there. Whether maybe 1 high profile addition, 1 lower level addition where someone can bounce around between the 2 spots. But yeah, there's a lot of question marks. It's upsetting. I wish it wasn't like that, but yeah, we can't be looking at the rotation realizing that it was mostly carried by Garrett Cole all last year and then be like, no, it's fine. Garrett Cole's probably not going to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Love Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole won me back over the last 2 years, in very convincing fashion after I was very critical of his signing the 2-3 years here. And it's hard to replicate a season like that, especially in today's baseball. So I understand that there's a lot of uncertainty, but that needs to be baked into the projections.
And even if we, feel confident in the guys we're bringing back, we literally have to fill a rotation spot. Luis Severino was here last year and is no longer. So, he dragged out, blew up that ERA for sure. A lot of the reason the Yankees have the 20th whatever best rotation ERA in baseball, it's because of him. But he's literally gone. So you can't even run back that same group of guys with any form of confidence. You need Yamamoto. You probably need a lower level depth signing as well. And you're not going to get him until December 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th. So you're going to have to really buckle up, do some work. I would have liked to sign Kyle Gibson. Now, they would never have done that because he lives in St. Louis, went to Mizzou, and they offered him a contract early in the offseason. So, yeah, no kidding. It didn't actually take a genius to figure that one out. But everybody laughing at the Cardinals with big needs for signing Kyle Gibson. 160 inning, 170 inning guy, mid-4s ERA. Like, yeah, that's fine. The only worry here would be he wouldn't have enough opportunity with the Yankees. They would probably fill those extra innings with a Randy Vasquez, these 4-inning guys that Matt Blake is all about. While we're talking about trades, though, I think it's probably worth revisiting the Gleyber Torres talks. We all know, we think we know, he's probably going somewhere by opening day this spring, this winter. $15 million on the books, projected ARB salary. It's a lot of money. We've been through the finer points of this before. Only bringing it back up because the Seattle Mariners need to tell us what they're doing, what their intention is. They traded Eugenio Suarez midweek last week to the Arizona Diamondbacks for nothing. For a 99-mile-an-hour throwing reliever who's erratic and walks people. I think every system has 12 of those. And Sebi Zavala, backup catcher, maybe a third-string catcher, who kills the Yankees. I watched him homer in Yankee Stadium in the probably the worst Yankee game I've ever been to, the smoke game, the wildfire game against the White Sox, where Lucas Giolito almost no-hit them. I don't know why I did that to myself. Sebi Zavala also homered in the Field of Dreams game, but that doesn't mean he's worth trading for Eugenio Suarez. That takes money off the Mariners' docket. I believe right now they're operating $40+ million in payroll below where they were last year with Teoscar Hernandez departing and this trade, etc. So the Mariners were in on Torres last year, heavily rumored. They ended up going with Colton Wong to fill that second base vacancy. Now they've got a lot of money to go around. They could easily absorb $15 million for 1 year of Gleyber Torres, or they could be slicing payroll because they intend to get worse. So they need to dictate to me soon, are you cutting payroll to make room for something, or are you truly cutting payroll and taking an embarrassing step back in the playoff race after you extended Luis Castillo? Like after you made an all-in move, trading your prospects and extending the ace you got because you theoretically intend to compete? Are you cutting money for somebody? Because then Gleyber Torres would be a fantastic fit. Maybe you just were dissatisfied with Eugenio Suarez and think you could do better. Or are you taking money off the books and taking a nice vacation to Tijuana? Because in that case, Gleyber's not coming. You cross Seattle off, and Luis Urias and Josh Rojas will be third baseman and second baseman for Seattle next year. And we can all say, oh, what could have been? I wonder if they'll trade us Luis Castillo this time.
Yeah, this is This is interesting, and now my brain's going because MLB.com on Thanksgiving, weird day to publish this, but had 6 bonkers blockbuster trades that would bonkers that would send the hot stove season into overdrive. I think some of these are good, but if you look at the hypothetical deal that they have on here for the Mariners and Soto, really gets you thinking because it would cost them, they would get, per this article, Juan Soto and reliever Tom Cosgrove for pitcher Bryce Miller, Jared Kelenic, and the Mariners' top 10 prospect shortstop Ty Petey. Don't know that guy.
Early pick last year. He's good.
Oh, okay, cool. So you look at that, and they just cleared some salary. If they're looking at, and they were mentioned as a Soto suitor even by Jeff Passan, so I think that holds a lot of weight. If that's the package, then they're going to have leftover package to make a deal for Gleyber Torres, which is a trade I think the Yankees would probably want to make, especially if they get the salary relief and have a couple of other deals in the chamber lined up, not of the Pablo Lopez variety that magically get erased at the buzzer. But, if the Mariners, weird situation right now, you're right. You zoom back and you're like, what are they doing? They just made all these kind of win now. They've made these kind of win now moves, and now they're not. On the flip side, I think that at the very least, they're getting ahead of what's to come at the winter meetings, clearing out, players, assets, whatever that they don't entirely want or view as part of the bigger picture moving forward, or at least for just a let's go for it in 2024 and win it all. And they set themselves up for a Soto Torres situation. I think that could be huge. But then again, I don't know what the Mariners are doing. Also, on while we're on the conversation, if this is what the package is for Juan Soto, the Yankees better outbid that with 2 extra prospects and just end the conversation. The Athletic came up with a prospect package for Soto and the Yankees. Very, very underwhelming, at least in my opinion, based on I guess what we've seen to date. But it was hang on one second, I pulled it up here. Pereira, Clark Schmidt, Randy Vasquez, Edgar Barclay.
Done.
I mean, done. That's done now. I mean, I don't think that that's the deal. I think that's a very light deal. I understand Soto was also, it's only 1 year. The Padres are in a bit of a desperate financial situation, but you're not getting arguably the best all-around hitter in baseball for, a bullshit Dodgers trade package where they throw a bunch of prospects in there and say, hey, once upon a time, these guys were pretty good. We don't have any use for them, so you take them. And then the deal blows up in your face. So if this is one thing does have me thinking, a lot of these proposed deals I'm seeing for Soto are not strong.
No.
So maybe the market actually is a little bit weakened for him. I don't think it's this week, probably somewhere in the middle. Probably, maybe it's an extra prospect from the Mariners. It's a instead of Edgar Barclay here in the Yankees deal, you get Chase Hampton instead. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like it's got to be a little bit more aggressive than what we're seeing. But then again, if this is the competition where the Yankees have, there's very few teams involved in the Soto trade market because they're distracted by other things. They have to outbid above and beyond, and that's the way they have to get it done. Brian Cashman's got to stop hugging his assets.
Yeah, I'm tired of reading these Mariners trade packages too. They're always like Bryce Miller in the centerpiece. Bryce Miller had a 4.30 ERA last year, and batters hit 250 off him, and he doesn't strike anybody out. Oh, the Mariners can't give up Brian Wu. You know what I thought when I saw Brian Wu in the projected pitchers, list moving forward this summer? Automatic win for the opponent. I was like, oh great, Wu's going. The Mariners will lose that one. They'll fall further out of the wild card race. These guys are not ready. I don't know why people are coveting the Mariners. Mid-tier. This felt like when the Yankees got James Paxton, although he was older and more established. But it was like James Paxton's given us 5 years of evidence that he's a mid-4s ERA guy, high 3s, and he never pitches. Sign me up, but it could work for us. That Tobias Funke, that never works. People convince themselves it works. It never does. It might work for us. Like James Paxton felt like that and was that. Does anybody have fond memories of James Paxton? You can lie to me and say that you do, but you don't.
No.
I don't. None of these Mariners arms excite me. And I guess the Yankees minor league pitchers are kind of a mystery box because it's like we know that Brian Wu and Bryce Miller look okay at the big league level. We don't know what Chase Hampton looks like, but that's what makes him kind of appealing right now.
Yeah. It's sick how it works, like, because you have guys like the Dodgers have a bunch of depreciated assets that I think a lot of teams can capitalize on because some of them debuted and they weren't that great, but they've had good minor league careers and, you could luck out. And then there's all these other teams with these top prospects who you haven't seen anything of. And it's like, oh yeah, but they didn't falter at the MLB level. So technically we think they might be more valuable. That's sometimes the thought process. And the Yankees have, I think, an advantage here. They cleared out the upper levels of the minor leagues. I guess the players that they weren't crazy about over the last 2 years. They built it back up. Whether it's good or not, I don't think is the point. Obviously, it's getting some rave reviews from publications and other people aren't convinced, whatever, but there is the element of intrigue and, mystique because you don't know exactly how they'll be able to perform. And it gives, I guess, another rebuilding team a clean slate. And it's like, okay, this guy's been unencumbered by the pressure. He hasn't been thrust into MLB action too early. He hasn't failed at the MLB level yet to affect his confidence. So, let's take a chance on a package of 4 of these guys that have had good minor league careers and have yet to be exposed to the next level. So, I don't know. But either way, if these are the Soto trade packages, it will be unforgivable if the Yankees don't jump the line and pay the price for Soto or even Yamamoto. If Yamamoto wants a couple more million, shouldn't hold the Yankees back. If the Padres want an extra pitching prospect or 2, shouldn't hold the Yankees back. If you want to be good in 20, you just got to give to get, and the Yankees have to realize. And Brian Cashman said it at his the press conference too. He's like, yeah, of course. He said it previously. Like, teams don't want to trade with us. It's harder for us to make deals with other teams, and it's like, okay, great. So then give them a reason to trade with you, or else you're just hanging on to a bunch of assets that don't ever develop, and then your team's treading water. Look, I don't know what the reality is. I'm not the GM, not the assistant GM, although I would like to go undercover and run intern errands.
Sure.
I feel like I'd be able to get a good gauge, making photocopy. You think they make photocopies still, actually?
I do. How much salary would you sacrifice to be a mole at the lowest levels of the Yankees? I think I would sacrifice a good deal.
Yeah, I would do. I would do a one of those elevated internships that were really appealing out of college. It was $30 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
To do this for 3 months. It's like, okay, yeah, I can live on that. I could figure that out. Maybe not right now. Maybe we have to bring the minimum wage up a little bit for it to work out for my current standing. But yeah, I'd run and get coffees. I'd order the lunches. I'd prepare the accommodations for the winter meetings coming up. I'd make the photocopies. I'd deliver the information to, I'd deliver the analytical information to the dugout and tell Aaron Boone, too bad. I'm going straight to the players. I'm not even going to ask you about this. But yeah, nonetheless, I don't know what's going on, but the Yankees clearly have had, I think, a feeling about the trade market because as the years have progressed, there's been more of these calculated deals to minimize risk and not go for the jugular for a certain player, or not jump to the front of the line, outbidding everybody with an offer that the other team couldn't refuse. And you got to get back to that. The Yankees have a lot of resources, as all of the players have said. Every player who has come out and they've been critical, but they've hedged their bets, right? They're like, hey, the Yankees might be misutilizing the information, but guys, don't worry. We have every resource you could ever imagine. So all we have to do is do a little bit of a reset, figure out where we're at, and then I think we'll be able to get back on track. So it's like, okay, you're telling me you have all these resources. You have, the smallest analytics department in the AL East that still does great work. Okay. You have an owner that is one of the wealthiest in baseball. Okay. You have a farm system that continues to get replenished, and whether or not those players are able to, I guess, come up in your own system and be homegrown and develop here, I guess doesn't matter. But if you're able to cultivate packages and trade them for better players or major league ready talent, then that says something too. So there needs to be everything kind of needs to come together, and they need to figure out where they're at. If that means spending an extra few bucks, if that means giving up a couple extra prospects, if that means, throwing caution to the wind on a trade acquisition that you like and you want to go after and not have to worry about a regression or, injuries or whatever it is, just, you got to do it. You got to just do it. And there's got to be less, it just feels like there's a lot of hesitating. And that's where I think a lot of these deals either fall through, or these other teams who are already, I guess, not wanting to do business with the Yankees are like, yeah, of course I don't want to do business with these guys. Cashman's called me back 4 times today with different packages. I don't want to hear this. Done.
I hate them. I always have. That's what I always say. Anyone who pretends they don't hate the Yankees is lying. If you're not a Yankee fan, you hate the Yankees. So, like, why would the GM of the Pirates be like, I'm going to do these guys a favor? No, he hates them. Everybody grew up hating them or loving them, but not somewhere in between. Comments popping off. Shout out to everybody joining us, whether you're here from the beginning or late. Stanley asking if we think the Yankees should have traded for Luis Castillo. I think I would have still kept Anthony Volpe out of that deal.
Yeah.
And Jason Dominguez. But if they could have done it without including those two people, absolutely. But I will never regret holding on to elite position player prospects instead of trading them for a volatile pitcher. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, no. I mean, Luis Castillo is great. I think that at the time before we saw Jason Dominguez, I was like, trade Jason Dominguez for him. It's an outfielder. We should be able to you should be able to print outfielders. It's the most expendable position, and that's nothing against outfielders. There's just the most of that position on the field. And you can have like borderline athletes in the corner positions. We've seen it happen here plenty of time, like Kyle Schwarber, great example. Not really an athlete, can play 100 games in the outfield and can hit 40 home runs. Like you could figure it out. I like Luis Castillo. I don't think that would have really made a difference for the Yankees last year, especially because they kind of torpedoed everything by getting rid of Montgomery, and then the trade rumors that affected the rest of the team. If they had just done the Castillo deal, maybe that changes their fortunes. But if we're to look at how they kind of handled everything else, I'm not so sure of it. Kudos to Seattle. They had a surplus at a certain position that they didn't deem was necessary to keep, and they dealt from that position of strength. And the Reds said, yeah, we're going with this. This is the better deal for us. So
it was a great trade.
Yeah, at that point, I don't think the Yankees weren't at the point of no return last year when that trade went down. That was last year, right? I'm not losing my mind.
Summer 22. It feels like so long ago.
I know it does. The Yankees weren't desperate at that point. It was like, yeah, we need the fuck you move to make sure this team is like ironclad in the postseason. But it's not like now where it's like, you need Juan Soto, you need Yamamoto, you need, in theory, Shohei. You're not getting him, but you need Shohei Ohtani. That's how bad the team has gotten. That's how bad all of these moves have adversely affected the roster. And now you're at the point where it's like, okay, now I have to overbid. Now I have to figure out how we're going to be super aggressive. Like at that point, it didn't feel like they needed to. They were at a historic pace in the first half. And it felt like, any addition would have been great, but they didn't have to make themselves uncomfortable for no reason. If the trade deadline was September 1st, yeah, I would say, yeah, give up probably whatever you needed to for Luis Castillo after you saw what the offense was doing, after you saw the pitching staff regressing a little bit from getting tired. Like, I think that's a different story. But at this rate, he's good. I don't think I think if Carlos Rodon is at his peak powers, he's better than Luis Castillo.
Well,
sad, but I think that's true.
Well, instead of making the fuck you move, we made the fuck us move. We got Montage. Gave Josh Donaldson more starts.
Us.
Yeah, well, fuck us.
The Yankees asked the questions we're all not asking.
Sorry, everybody, for the potty mouths. People were commenting last show. And fuck you guys for that comment, honestly. No, thanks for joining us. Comment section is the best. Fans are the best. You know how Yankee fans are the best? Because they spent 48 hours this weekend looking at Nestor Cortez's wedding photos and going, where's Aaron Judge? Very interesting. Chapman's there. Donaldson's there. Giorgio is there. No Aaron Judge. Where's the captain? Where's that leadership? I don't know, man. Like,
why wasn't he best man?
He was probably invited. I don't think you go for. Remember when Nestor and Mike Tauchman and Corey Kluber all went to the Bucks game together before Judge flew to the winter meetings?
Yeah.
And everybody was like, what does this mean? And it turned out absolutely nothing. He just like gave some guys some Bucks tickets. I don't think you go from being a part of that group to not being invited to the wedding. Weddings are hard. Hey, show of hands, who here wants to attend their friend's wedding in the middle of November, Thanksgiving weekend? That's a tough one to give up. You're Aaron Judge. The pressure on your gift is astronomical too.
Oh my God.
Nestor opens your card and is like $300. Okay. Your thank you note is going to be insincere. You're gonna get a very boilerplate. Hey, we loved your presence. It made the event what it was. We can't wait to celebrate with you in the new year and many years to come. You're getting a disappointing interaction in that case. So Judge is coming to the wedding. He's giving you $5,000 and he's giving you a watch, or he's giving you nothing and saying you didn't thank me for the Bucks tickets. But I don't think that we need to be judging Judge's character or the relationship between teammates or whatever based on Nestor Cortez's wedding. And I know that because Anthony Rizzo was there, but so was Josh Donaldson, and so was Aroldis Chapman. So interesting friendships, but certainly a very little bearing on the chemistry of the 2024 Yankees.
I am confused as to why Donaldson was there. I need more answers on that because
I think Donaldson, got Cortez into the Trump rally last week in Florida.
Where is Nestor?
I think that was a thank you for getting him into the exclusive rally.
That's great. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's a weird crew. I mean, yeah, Judge probably just has shit to do, man. Holiday season. This wedding also happened over Thanksgiving weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly.
Judge is a family man. Judge loves his family. He loves Jesus. Probably loves the Pilgrims. So he wasn't, and he lives across the country. I wonder, and Nestor's wedding was probably in what, Florida?
Yeah, probably Hialeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't read into it too much, but it's weird that Donaldson was there. That's going to bother me.
Ooh, Trump joke. We make Trump jokes all the time. You can't take a little Trump joke. I don't know.
He was at the rally. What do you mean?
He was there. He literally was there. Trump joke. He attended that. You know what? I mean, hey, I think this podcast is for a lot of people. We've enjoyed having all of you on the stream. If you're not allowed to mention Trump, that's a tough one. We do it a lot, but he's running for president. He's a pretty important guy. But thanks for showing up in the comment section, everybody. It's been a good show. Thank you for joining us today, all off season long, Monday, Thursday, 2:00 Eastern time. It's been a joy, as always, talking you through this, even though we don't have much to update you on before the winter meetings. Or the Yankees got some two big North Stars who either are going to end up in their laps or the offseason is going to be really disappointing. They're going to have to regroup for 2025. We have that article on lock. If you want to see who's in the 2025 free agency class, they're going to have to spend bigly. They're going to have a big offseason, either this year or next. We know. I'll do it for you sometimes, Roberto, but we can't finish every show with a Trump impression. But we'll finish some of them with a Trump impression. We're live on YouTube, like I said, Monday, Thursday, 2:00 Eastern. Every baseball player is free to support whoever they're able to support. But would you be commenting if I had said Nestor was at a Joe Biden rally? Very interesting. Again, simply where he was. It's the same thing. You're saying the same thing I am. You're allowed to, you're allowed to say where a guy is.
Nestor wasn't there.
Maybe he wasn't there. We don't know.
Trump pretended to be there. He tricked Trump.
He could have tricked Trump. You don't know. Ooh, don't be careful, Thomas. Don't say Trump is trickable. That's going to get people really mad. Don't insinuate you could trick Trump. Well, I like talking about the Yankees, quite frankly. Frankly, we do like talking about the Yankees. So I'm going to be talking about the New York Yankees with my friend and co-host Thomas Carinate a lot more than we'll be talking politics for the next year and a half. It's an interesting offseason or a horrible offseason. There is no in between, but either way, there is plenty to discuss. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel and you like the show, please do hit that button. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, please join us. Hopefully future episodes, we got a lot more meat to talk about rather than just, speculation and hoping that things get in line before the winter meetings start in earnest. I am Adam Weinreb. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinreb. Thomas Carinate. Where can the people find you?
Hey, everybody. I'm at Tommy's_takes. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening, reading, interacting. We're having a great time. We'll see you again on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, live right here. Winter meetings start next week, so we got a lot of stuff going on, writing about a lot of stuff. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. Again, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube if you want to stay up to date, you want to have fun. You come here for the Trump impersonations. You can head on
People
over
apparently do. Like, people
Yeah.
apparently do come
Yeah.
here. I'll do more impressions too. I got more in the bank.
Yeah.
It just so happens that Nestor went to a rally like 2 weeks ago. It was one of the weirdest things that's ever happened that he got publicly shouted. Just imagine if Bill Clinton during the 96 election was like, Graham Lloyd is here. Like, it would have been funny if that happened also. We're just laughing at a weird thing.
Yeah, don't forget about
lefty reliever Graham Lloyd. Locking down the 7th inning. Paving the way for Damaso Marte. So shout out.
Sleeper Daily Fantasy. Don't forget, if you want Trump to be your quarterback this week in your daily fantasy team, go on ahead. You could probably pick him. But yeah, otherwise, guys, we'll talk to you again Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, live right here. Thanks again, and take care.
Take care, y'all. We'll see you on Thursday.